I was going to ask, since it's basically the halfway point, what's your hot take so far this season?
In terms of fantasy?
No, just in general. So we'll start with yours. What's your hot take so far this season? Just throwing an opinion out there that maybe not everybody agrees with.
That not everybody agrees with?
Well, that's why it's a hot take.
Otherwise, it would be a cold take.
I would have to probably roll. I mean, I don't really consider it a hot take because I feel like everyone feels that. Like, I don't think Kansas City's the best team in the AFC. I know they're 8-0, but every game they have only won like 2 games by over a score, and it was like.
I was literally going to say the same thing. I was thinking on my way here, and I'm like, after last night's game, primarily, it's like Tampa Bay took them to overtime, and they don't have
don't get me wrong,
any wide receivers.
They find ways to win, but I feel like that's eventually going to catch up with you,
Yeah,
especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, because they're barely winning,
really going to,
and they're playing teams that they should be beating. Like last night against Tampa Bay, they have no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. If you told me Tampa Bay is going into Kansas City with no Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, and they go to overtime,
or McMillan.
Yeah, and they go into overtime, I'd be like, "You're
got Baker. Let him cook."
But I'm like,
make it.
how?
Let him bake.
I'm like, that just.
He's baking. He's
shaking
shaking and he's baking.
Make that a thing. It's on film. Let me make that.
There's gotta be a dude with the last name Shake or something. Get him in there.
So I guess it's not so much I'll take because I was like, I agree. I mean, they're undefeated and they find ways to win. It's Kansas City. But I don't, with the way they're playing and the teams are keeping it close that shouldn't be close games, when it comes time for the playoffs, I don't know if they get over those humps. Like, this might be the year for Baltimore or even Buffalo or someone like that who's always done well in regular season and always gets stopped by Kansas City. This is their year to take it to Kansas City.
Oh, Josh,
Buffalo, though, I don't necessarily see that because
Josh Allen,
they're on the same page as Kansas City, I think. Like, their record shows that they're really good, but like the Miami game, I knew Miami was going to lose. We had already talked about it last week that their season's practically over, but the fact that Miami took it to where Buffalo had to kick a 61-yarder, longest in team history, his career longest, just to win when we were missing
Tyler Bass,
8 defensive starters.
I guess for me,
We had defensive players in there that I didn't even really know about.
But again, that's a divisional game.
That don't matter.
You play them twice a year. It is because everyone always says like, "Oh, Baltimore should just run over the Steelers every time." But the second we play them, suddenly that game is 7 points or less. And
But that's one thing your defense has always been good at. Your defense has always been good at stopping the run.
But again,
And that's what Baltimore did. We talked about this before you got here. It's like,
I mean,
with Deontay Johnson going there, it's like it's a winning
Lamar's
team.
throwing this rock. He's like 4th in the league in passing.
Well, that's because they got Derrick Henry. Everybody's focused on trying to stop him.
But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like you know how to play a team because when you play them ever so often. That's why Tyreek Hill, he's always able to do well versus teams that he plays, once every 2 years. But he hasn't had a good game against Buffalo in a long time. And I'm talking about like 100 plus in a tutty. He hasn't had that in I think like 4 or 5 games. And it's because you prep because you play him so often. You know how to play him.
Well, this year primarily it was because Miami's run game has been working.
But again, it was like same with New England back in the day. New England would just roll over teams, and the second you guys would shoot up there, it'd be like, well, we don't know how to play, but they come down to Miami, and you guys would beat them.
Yeah.
You just know how to do it when you get to verse a team twice in the year, and you get to see them every year. So it's like whenever it's a divisional game, it's like, oh yeah, they should whoop them on the team. I'm like, not so fast. Like, especially if you got guys that have been there for a while, like John and Mike. Like, they've versed each other a lot. They know each other's tendencies. They know what they want to do. And it's just all about trying to get the best out of each other.
But this year, I think we both agreed when we were talking about the other night. I think the best team right now in the NFL is Detroit.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because defensively, they're playing fantastic. And offensively, they can do it all. It really doesn't matter.
And they don't really
Gibbs and Montgomery are running over everybody.
Games.
They're not
They
close.
had like one close game.
And against Minnesota. And Minnesota was, at that time, everybody thought that they were the team to beat. And Detroit was like, no, we're the team to beat. Because their losses were just off games for them, which they're allowed to have. But like when they're on, which they've been for the most part this season, they're beating teams so bad that they're turning the games into practice trying to throw touchdowns to tackles.
And I do like that. I'm not saying in terms of like Dan Campbell with like his aggressive play calling.
Well, they haven't
He
had games that
hasn't-
have come down to where
That's
they
the
need
thing. He hasn't been put in a position yet to say, "Hey, let's go for it on 4th and 2."
Yeah.
You know,
Now, I'm hoping he
instead of
learned from those
instead
mistakes
of
last
kick
year.
the field goal to get the points and call
yeah.
it a day.
Now, hopefully he learns from that.
He's made a few decisions this year that
He's
have-
made a few, but
Yeah, 'cause
not
they went for it up
not
fourth a couple
not,
times.
not as
Show me
many
that he's-
as last year.
Yeah,
last year it
yeah.
seemed like he had at least 3 to 4 a game.
Yeah, it's shown me that he's kind of grown with it and
He matured a little as a
maybe
coach.
somebody on the sideline just going, "Hey, just get the points. We'll play
Like, hey,
another day."
3 points, like it's fine.
Take the points.
We'll be okay.
It's the NFL. Every point
matters.
matters.
Yeah.
I mean, the
it
fact
doesn't
that
matter if you throw 450 yards.
You can throw
It's all
for
about who's-
85.
you can throw for 85 and 3 touchdowns
Yeah.
to win the game.
It's
not
all
only
about
win
it's
the
all
game,
about who has the most
dominate
points on
game.
the board at the end.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
how you know who's won.
Which also brings it up. We were talking about it beforehand. It's like people who were bitching about in the Miami game, the Coach McDaniel keeping those 2 timeouts in his pocket, and I'm like, look, with the time that was left as a coach, their kicker hadn't been playing well. Bass hadn't had a good game. He missed an extra point early, doinked a second one.
There was talks of them like getting rid of him halfway through the year.
Yeah,
because
so it's like,
not kicking
look,
up to his expectations.
If I'm the coach, and it's easy for you guys to say this now that the game's over, I was like, but in the game, there was probably 12 seconds when he kicked the field goal, because when they kicked it off to us, there was like 6 on the clock. So 61-yard field goal, I'd say about 5 seconds came off, maybe 4, whatever. But if he misses that, Miami gets the ball at midfield, good field position with 2 timeouts and like 6 seconds on the clock. So you can run one solid play, and it can be anywhere on the field as long as you get down right away, and then they're kicking a field goal. It's like, I wouldn't waste a timeout icing the kicker. He's already almost missed 2 extra points. He did miss one. The second one doinked and somehow still went through. I'm like, and he had that was more than his career long. I think his career long was like 54 before
Something
that
in
one.
that realm.
It was in the lower 50s, and I'm like, the chances of him making that were very, very slim. I'd love to see the next gen stats on the percentage based on his kicks that he had missed, it being his career long. I'm sure it was less than 3% or something like that. I was like, so why waste the timeout? As a coach, you save those timeouts because you might need it. And don't get me wrong, the play at the end for them to end it was kind of dumb. It's like you have 2 fast wide receivers. They were playing very deep. Throw it at Tyreek Hill across the middle and see if he makes somebody miss. And do a hook and ladder with him and Waddle. Who cares? Something. Whatever they did kind of just
Waddle had 2 catches for
negative 4 yards because he lost 30 yards on that last play.
Yeah.
Because people were like, oh, Tua didn't have great stats. And I'm like, well, the 30 yards came off on that last play because Waddle finished with -4. I'm like, that was statistically like Tua's best game of his
Yeah, he didn't
career.
have
He
bad
had 3
stats.
incomplete
He's
passes,
efficient.
2 touchdowns. He finished before that -30. I think he had like 265 yards, something like that, because he finished like 230 minus the 30 yards. I'm like, he played fine. I'm like, and there were a few plays where, like the one where he started to scramble and he ended up finding Waddle for the touchdown. I'm like, people were worried. I'm like, that's the kind of plays you want your quarterback to make. I was like, before the concussion, he might have ran that. And the one where he didn't run it, everybody was like, whoa, and then he
Yeah.
dove. And I'm like,
Every time he
got
left,
down.
every time he left the pocket, my
Yeah.
my butthole puckered.
yeah. But it's like, when your quarterback goes 26 for 29 or whatever it was that he went, and they're like, we need to draft a quarterback next year. And I'm like, in what world or what game were you watching where quarterback was the issue? Our defense allowed 30 points.
And all the ones he didn't play.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Did you watch the games that he didn't play in? Because our offense did not show up.
That's why you need. That's why you need.
And people point out, they're like, why is it that our defense doesn't show up when Tua's in, but when Tua was out, they were like, statistically, in the games that Tua was out for, we were like the 5th best defense in yards and points. And I'm like, yeah, that's the golden question. Where the hell does the defense go when Tua's actually playing? Because in the 2 games Tua's been back for, we've allowed over 20 points. The games that he was gone for, I think we allowed 20 points once. It was like,
Just a step up situation. you
yeah,
know?
the defense has got to be like consistent all year. Now, don't get me wrong, we had some injuries that happened right before Tua came back because Holland went out. Like this game, we didn't have Holland, Kohu, or Obviously, our defensive ends, both of them were out. There was one more star defender we were missing.
And then like Ziegler or something.
Oh, yeah, Zach Siegler. So, because he fractured his orbital bone.
Yeah, got poked in the eye.
Yeah, someone was like, he got poked. I'm like, it's like, well, it was a very strong poke because he fractured his orbital bone. It's kind of important.
We call that a punch.
Yeah.
That was a little.
I was like, and he is, like, last year, statistically, was, like, the best interior defensive lineman in the run game. He was, like, #1 for run stop. I was like, so that's a big part of your defensive line missing. I was like, and they still allowed 30-something, like, they kept the game close.
Yeah.
Both teams had turnovers. The Mostert turnover really hurt Miami.
Yeah.
Because we were in field goal range when he had that fumble. It was, but...
Sounds like it's time to.
To be fair, though, I said it afterwards. I was like, Devon Achane's really taking command of that backfield. Like, he's looking comfortable and playing well back there. I was like, and Jalen Wright's coming into his own, too, when they give him the touches.
You still keep Mostert around just to keep.
Yeah, we have. I think he's got one more year on his
contract.
contract after this one because I think he signed a 2-year extension. But regardless, if people were pushing, there was a bunch of fan pages. Most of them were fake. They were like, Miami should draft Ashton Genty next year. I'm like, why? We have a rookie running back and a second-year running back right now that are playing fantastic. I was like, last year Devon Achane set the NFL record for most yards per carry.
Put running backs on the field.
Plus, the way you guys are losing, I mean, your pick's gonna be way higher. You'd be overpicking.
Yeah, we go O-line and defense. That's our issue. That is our issue.
I'm
It's O-line
saying
and
you
defense.
lose enough games, and then you just get Travis Hunter, baby.
Yeah.
And the bad thing, well, why would we need Travis Hunter?
Why not?
You just said you need defense.
We always need to try.
You said you need defense.
There's better defensive players than taking him. He's a good.
He's literally
Gimmick
the
player.
#1 ranked defensive player in
I
mock
don't see
drafts.
Like a Heisman hopeful
Yeah.
defense, which
Heisman hopeful.
I haven't heard of in a while. Speaking of defense,
Yeah.
do you give the Defensive Player of the Year award to a maybe 3 or 4 win team? Because right now Dexter Lawrence
Yeah, it's like leading the league in sacks and.
He's not now.
is doing it. Well, he's
Trey
not now because I
Hendrickson
think
is.
somebody.
But he was doing it from.
Trey Hendricks had like 4
Yeah, Trey
sacks.
Hendricks had
Yeah.
4. So
But he's also
not-
doing it from an interior defensive
Yeah.
lineman position, which is insane.
So do you give the Defensive Player of the Year award?
You don't because you
Myles Garrett.
before. Yeah.
Give it to Myles Garrett.
Unfortunately, no. Your defense also has to actually be good in order for you to get it. As
Give it
well.
to Myles Garrett.
Well, it's not defensive team of the year. It's
Micah
defensive
Parsons.
player.
Tell that to T.J. Watt last year, who had
Oh,
better
who
numbers.
fucking cares about
he had better
TJ
numbers
Watt?
than Miles Garrett.
Who cares?
But
Myles Garrett.
It's T.J. Watt
Garrett got
every
the
year.
award.
Who
Micah
cares?
Parsons.
And same with when he lost Aaron Donald that year. He had
Because they
better
did the same thing
numbers.
last year. Tua led the league in passing yards. You don't hear me saying he should have won MVP.
Well, no, I'm not counting. That.
Okay, then. Who fucking
Offensive
cares?
player of the year, you could have. said
Numbers don't
something.
mean anything.
Exactly.
That's my
So,
point.
But the thing is, the better team won, so his numbers don't mean shit. Dexter Lawrence. They're gonna give it to a guy that's got hits.
But you're constantly pointing out the stats for TJ. No one fucking cares.
But that's kind of making the argument point is that Dexter Lawrence has the stats, but his team doesn't have the record. TJ lost it, had the numbers, but Cleveland had the better team defense. And you just said, well, it's not a team defense award, but
It's a team player award.
I understand, but he's on a better defensive team.
Who cares?
But that's, again, making the point.
Basically the same for any award, like the Heisman. It's the same thing. They always put it, this player had way better stats, but college, there's so many fucking teams. Yeah, you can have a guy who played for a D2 school. Probably should win the Heisman if you go based on numbers.
Well, they have their own award.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but
I think it's called the Walter
Got
Payton.
is it a, yeah, I thought Peyton was 3.
No,
Peyton was
3's something else. He was 2, because he came from a D2 school.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's numbers are all fine and dandy, but
Dandy.
unless you break a record, like a substantial record, then you're not gonna win it if your team is 6th. You know.
I think when it comes to the defense, they just look at how much that defensive player impacts the game.
TJ would be further up in the sack lead, if not running away with it, had not been called for penalties every time he gets a sack.
Oh yeah, he's probably lost 2 or 3 minimum.
He
Tell him to
lost
stop being a dirty player.
He lost 3 in one game.
How is he dirty? Help me out there.
He's getting called. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch.
Yeah,
it.
he-
No.
He's not getting called
His
for penalties.
defense is getting called
no.
like holding.
He'll get a sack, and then there'll be a defensive holding.
Yeah.
And he got 3 called back, I believe, in one game. Like
Oh, that's crazy.
all on defensive holding. I was
Yeah.
like,
Or the one where he.
I do remember watching
or the
one of the
one where he
games.
broke the record at Baltimore, but they were playing at Baltimore, so their statistician changed that sack to a
Tackle for
run.
loss.
No, it was a tackle for loss. Snoop Huntley was attempting to run, and I'm like, he didn't tuck that ball one iota.
sure did.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett.
I'm not saying Myles Garrett isn't a great player either.
That's the only person I'll say that he probably deserved the award over. But all the years that you bitched and said that he didn't deserve it over Aaron Donald, yeah, no.
The one year that he lost to Aaron Donald, yeah, he had way better numbers. Aaron Donald was on the number 2 defense though.
Aaron Donald, the only reason he had better numbers is because Aaron Donald, literally they created a stat for him because he got doubled and triple teamed like every play. And somehow he still got past him.
TJ doesn't.
No.
They literally chip him all the time.
And
the
the
only
last
time
week,
the only time he gets the real sacks is when they're dumb enough to be like, "Hey tackle, you got him right on your own."
you got it.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
I can
sacks did
do
he have
this.
last week?
I'm going out and
He had 2 sacks last week.
Okay, and he went one-on-one. So in one-on-one for most of the game, he only had 2 sacks.
No, he didn't go one-on-one most of the
They
game.
literally showed most of the game. He was literally one-on-one with right tackle.
There's a running back in the backfield. There's a tight end off to the side. He even got clipped by a wide receiver that was in motion.
I'd love
Trust
to
me,
see it.
I watched the whole game.
I know you watched the whole game because you suck on his nuts the whole game.
No, I want to
Like
appreciate
they're a bag of
someone-
sunflower seeds from Cody's right.
No, I just want to appreciate someone who does the work. and
Sure do. We just start calling you Steeler Diddy.
Fine with me. I mean, I don't know anyone that doesn't deserve that award more.
you get fingers and butts and everything.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'll be
TJ went, Donnie, what are you doing back there? I'm trying to
I'll
get
be
sacked.
the first.
Get off my
I'll
nuts.
be the first to admit when someone is,
Sack with a sack.
way better. But I mean,
I'd say, historically speaking, Aaron Donald will probably go down as a better defensive lineman in the Hall of Fame.
well, yeah, because TJ's a linebacker, so you are correct. He will go down as a better defensive lineman.
He'll go down as a better defensive player altogether if you want to get technical about it.
Well, yeah, probably because.
Okay, then stop fucking bitching about him winning over TJ Watt.
But it's because he got handed an extra defensive player of the year.
He did not get handed anything.
Oh, he
That
got-
man was a fucking monster. When he was on the field,
I'm not saying he wasn't a monster.
people
but,
were afraid of him.
But the year he won over TJ before TJ broke the sack record the next year, the numbers, they weren't close. It was like how people are like, oh, Max Crosby was better than TJ Watt in, AFC because he had like 4 extra tackle for losses. But if you look at like sacks and literally every other thing, he's like 6 back. Like that's the comparison, is all I'm saying.
I don't think Max Crosby's that good. I think he's overrated.
I do too. He just plays a lot, and
Well, now he's playing on a team that there is nobody else. It's primarily him.
There
so
isn't.
he gets
So now-
a lot of focus.
yeah, now he's definitely getting more
He's just
focus.
a high motor guy that gets rewarded for just work because he's just
Great work ethic.
He
Great
plays
work
every
ethic,
play.
and I'm not saying he's not
Yeah.
top 7
Sure.
in AFC in terms of of his position, but they're saying like he's like right behind Myles Garrett, and it's like personally no, in my opinion.
Last year he was barely top 10
Yeah,
at his position because, well, you had Hunter, Watt, Hutchinson also had a decent
Parsons.
season. Garrett, Parsons, like we could go on. There's a bunch we could name before we ever get to Crosby. Now don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, Crosby's good, but to think that like when he was voted unanimously as a Pro Bowl, and I'm like, there's plenty out there that are better.
I think it was more that he got second team, and I'm like, I know 3 other people in his
Who
conference
deserved it.
that are better, so I don't know how he is second team.
Yeah. All right. But even from the number standpoint, you know as well as I do, I'm a numbers guy because it always came down to Zach Thomas should have been in the Hall of Fame first time around. He
Hall
leads.
of Fame is different.
he
though.
leads
That's
all
like,
time
That's like those
tackles.
those people are just like, I mean, they'll let some people in, and you're like, what?
Well, the fact that he got into plenty of Pro Bowls, but there was a lot that he didn't get into, and I'm like,
His
how does he lead the NFL all time in tackles, but only made like 5 Pro Bowls?
to be fair
Pro Bowl.
though,
1 all time team. Yeah,
And it's not-
in individual tackles. Zach Thomas was number one.
Yeah, it's not his fault though because they just don't recognize tackles as great as they do all the other stats, unfortunately.
Yeah, and when you have another Hall of Fame defensive player on your team, it's like he's not going to get all the sacks. Jason Taylor's up there.
And that's the thing, they like sacks more, and that's what JT did.
It is the sexier of the two stats.
Yeah. Because let's say he got interceptions, that's sexier. The sacks are sexier.
Interceptions apparently aren't that sexier because
tackles for loss. Or
the one year
Yeah.
that Xavier Howard led the league in interceptions and was the first player in like 10 years to get double digits in interception, he finished third in Defensive Player of the Year.
TJ broke the sack record.
No, but I'm just saying he finished third.
Yeah, who'd he finish behind?
I don't even remember.
Was that also Aaron Donald?
No, I don't think it was Aaron Donald.
It was either Miles or Micah, I think. 1,000%, I think.
Might have been
was
Micah
one of
because
them.
I was like,
I gotta look
I'm
it
not like because that year I'm like I'm not saying he should have won because TJ broke the sack record, but I'm like the fact that he got voted and he only finished third and he had how many interceptions did he have that year? 12 or 13?
I know he had double digits.
Yeah, and he was like first player in a long time had double digits, and I'm like, that's an impressive stat. 12 interceptions. I was like, even the next year he added like 5, and they said since he had came into the league, he leads, or in like the previous 5 years, he leads all defensive backs in interceptions, and he'd only played in 3 of those seasons. He wasn't even in the league in 2 of them. I was like, that's an interesting stat to have. But Miami gets overlooked for everything, so I'm used to it at this point.
That year?
Since Dan Marino's left, they're just like, nobody on that team deserves anything.
Oh, Dan.
Was it 20?
But to be fair, we love Dan.
Sorry, it was
Yeah, we did love
2020, actually. He was third, and he lost out to Aaron Donald, and TJ Watt was second.
Yeah.
Well, we love Dan.
Everybody loves Dan.
Everybody
Yeah.
loves Dan.
He had 10 on the button.
Okay.
I could have swore he had 12.
Nah, he only
Or
had.
maybe they were calling out turnovers in general because he had fumble recovery or forced fumbles or something too. Because he had a bunch of turnovers that
I'm
year.
going with the stats that they're just kind of showing me, because
But
yeah,
I don't know. It was the whole MVP race has become a joke. Hall of Fame in the NFL has become a joke.
it's all about
It's all become a joke.
who's the best quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were having that conversation too about like Derrick Henry should 100% be in the talks for MVP if his season continues on track with the way it is, because he's on pace to break 2,000 yards, and at his age, that's fucking impressive. And 20 touchdowns. Which we all said that he was probably going to lead the NFL in
Well,
touchdowns.
like I was telling you,
Never would have guessed
yesterday-
he had this many
Well, like I was
yards.
telling you yesterday, if he breaks the rush record and probably gets, I said 20 touchdowns, but I'll drop it to just leads the league in touchdowns. He's got a great shot to take it down.
Yeah, and I don't even think 20 will blow the lead in touchdowns by a lot, because with Chris McCaffrey not playing this year,
Hey, he's coming back this week.
he is. But a lot of the teams,
Just in time to help my 1-8 fantasy team.
a lot of teams are running. There's 2 running backs, so there's no like set one. And then the teams that do have that set one, Barkley's the only one that can give him a run for his money.
Well, to be honest,
Barkley's lost a bunch.
Yeah, he lost what
Hurts.
2 or 3 this last game to Hurts.
I think they said in the last game that Hurts had 7.
7 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God.
Oh, this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he sure shit
No,
ain't
I'm saying in this
passing
one
for him.
game, he took what 2 or 3 rushing
3.
touchdowns in.
He
3.
took 3.
From like the 1 or 2.
He
I
had
know.
10.
Hey, that
carries.
tush push, baby. Hey, if you want the touchdown, fucking finish it off, Barkley.
Yeah.
But it's
I know
like
you're spinning in
that's the
front
whole
of
reason
people
why
backwards.
Baltimore brought Derrick Henry in. It's like I have Lamar Jackson. He's still having a good fantasy season, but it's like all those touchdowns that he normally would just walk in. Now Henry's just plowing his way through, and it's like Lamar Jackson's just like, oh, this just saves me from getting hit. Just
Yeah.
hand the ball off to you. Now I would have
Gotta learn
never.
to become a pocket passer sometime.
I don't think anybody would have guessed that Derrick Henry halfway through the season would have over 1,000 yards. Touchdowns, I think we all can agree that we thought he would probably have what he has.
I
But
would
1,000
have
yards?
felt it. I would have felt it because what? It was like when did he get hurt? Last year, or was it 2 years ago when he got hurt?
Oh, it was a couple years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, and he was on that pace then. He had 8 games
Yeah.
and he was at 900 yards. So
That's 2 more years on to a running back's
The
life.
fact that he leads by like an exorbitant amount.
He leads by a lot. I'll
Yeah.
give you that.
And
yeah.
touchdowns, I think he leads by like at least 4, I would think.
Like when it's just when the next
Because
one,
Cook's up there in touchdowns too, because Cook has like 6.
when the next one is Jordan Mason,
or 7.
who will maybe get 10 carries this week.
If Christian McCaffrey is...
No, it's Barkley now. Barkley is actually Barkley's only 120 something behind.
That's because the 2 past weeks he's ran for 350 yards.
On one less game.
Because he ran...
then the next one is Josh Jacobs at 762.
Well, what, Barkley's last 2 games, he ran for almost 180, 190 yards both games.
Maybe. But Derrick Henry has 11
Because he
touchdowns.
ran for 186 this week, right?
The next up is 8.
And last week was when...
I think he had 199 all-purpose yards. I think he ended up with like 130 something.
That might have been what it was. And the week before was when he had 180 and almost got his career best.
He had 159, 108, and then versus the Giants went for 176.
Yeah.
So in 3 weeks,
What did he have this past week?
159.
Okay, so yeah. Like I said, he had over 300 yards, 320 yards in 2 games. That's a lot. But Derrick Henry did the same thing. He had 199 and then turned around and got 180 just a couple weeks later. So it's like... But if you'd have told me Derrick Henry would have had should have had a 200-yard rushing game this year, I'd have been like, you're high in that offense. That offense runs through Lamar Jackson.
Derrick Henry has made the 1 yard lines like almost
Useless.
It's watchable on either side. Because if Baltimore's got the ball and the one on the other side, you're like, hang on, this giant human being
Could break it 99 yards.
Run for 99 yards.
I thought he was going to in the one game. He broke it, what was it, 80 before he got tackled?
Got tired.
Yeah, he
Because
pulled
it
a,
happened in the 4th, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I'm dead."
he pulled a Jake. He got all the way down there, and
I was like, "Oh, he's gonna do it," and then I'm like, "He's slowing down."
that's when you have a
He's
teammate.
just slowing it down just a hair.
That's when you have a teammate and you're just like, take this, I'm tired. I tried to get Jake to give it to me in that game.
Yeah,
I was running with him and I could hear him
take it.
literally dying, and I'm like, Jake, give me the ball. There's literally no one around us right now. We're 20 yards away from the next defender. You're not gonna make it. You might die right here.
You gotta do it.
And he just fell. Like, the defender finally caught up to him and barely put a hand on him, and he fell. I'm like, bro, you could have gave me the ball and we'd have scored.
Yeah, I fucking hate movies.
There's not many people that just hand the ball off for no reason. Yeah, I did that a couple of times actually.
Yeah.
That was fun.
So, and we had more injuries this week. So
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb's going to be out.
He's
Gonna play.
He's getting an MRI.
Is he out?
According to Jerry Jones, he's got a really good
trust
shot of playing this week. Now Dak's on the
Dak's out for a
Dak's
few
on the
weeks.
IR.
Yep.
Yeah, for
So
at
we
least
get
4.
With a
so
hamstring.
So we're getting 4 weeks of Cooper Rush /
What if they-
Trey Lance.
What if they win every game?
Trey Lance just comes in and just.
So
No,
Trey
Cooper
Lance
Rush.
comes in and destroys.
Oh,
I didn't
Trey
know
Lance comes in.
How do you handle that?
Dak's gone.
He just paid him all that money.
I mean,
There's teams that'll take him.
Denver did it. We'll take
But the
that
difference
cap.
is, I think there are teams that would take Dak. Because he's still a decent quarterback.
60 million though. 60
You'd have
million.
you'd have to eat part of it. Like you'd have to make a deal.
Yeah,
like
Trey would have to
the
be like, we'll do
Cowboys would
half.
probably have to throw something in to sweeten the deal, just to be like, hey, we need you to eat.
It'd probably have to be like, we'll gift wrap you Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Send him to
Throw
Carolina.
us a first round.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't have to fucking worry about him there.
Throw us a first round or two.
I mean,
We'll-
what are some teams you could see him going to if, say, they win with him being on IR, which could be the worst thing to happen for Dak. He's got to hope that they
to
lose
be
every
honest,
game.
even if they go 4-0 wise on the IR, he's going to still be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback.
But he should be.
There's no scenario where it doesn't happen.
But like, is there a team
He'd
that you
have
could
to
see him going
basically-
to?
He'd have to
that would
basically
take
slap Jerry Jones in the face with his dick, and even then, Jerry's going to think about it.
He'd have to do it again. He'd
Yeah.
have to slap Jerry Jones in the face with
Hey, Jerry, get over it. Oh,
again.
no, wait a minute.
I mean, the Panthers, I could see they would take him.
More than likely, it's an audition for Cooper Rush or
Trey Lance. To be honest,
whoever they
I
get.
would throw Trey Lance in there.
Yeah, see what he could do.
And because you have him under contract, I think for 1 more year, because I think they signed him.
And you want to see him out there.
no,
and this season,
personally, I would just
the
do it
season's a
because
wash
then
for
you could
Cowboys.
trade him and actually get something okayish for him.
because they're what, 2 and
He's not. How old is he?
Trey Lance, he's 24, 25.
If that,
I
yeah.
don't think he's even that. Like, because he came into the league super young, so I'm thinking he's like.
He came in
the
at like
20
22, didn't he?
I'm
21?
thinking he's in the 22.
21, he was a junior.
I'm thinking he's in the 3-ish range.
That's fine.
Because I always have to remind myself that Sam Darnold is 27.
Yeah. Jay-Z's. His name sounds old.
And he's been everywhere now.
That's
like,
true.
And when you go he's only 24.
Yeah.
24, okay. I thought it was
20
24 or 25.
24 years old.
And you got one more contract, like you said. You want to see him play.
Well, that
You don't want it to be a waste.
I would.
Why sign
for
somebody
me,
you've never
for
even seen
me,
play again?
I would let him play 4 games, and then people will see. And if you happen to go 4-0 and you can keep him out there, that's perfectly fine. But then then next year, since you already have him signed, you trade his ass so fucking
His
quick
market-
to a
his
team that's
market
like.
skyrockets.
And yeah, his because he's got nowhere to go but up in terms of trade value.
yeah,
That'd be the most Dallas thing they could do. They get a quarterback that goes 4-0,
they get rid of him.
and then they get rid of him.
Yeah, but again, you already signed Dak to $60 million, so it's
You
like
get rid of Dak. Who fucking cares?
Dak cares.
Dak.
What has Dak done?
Jerry.
What has Dak done for the Dallas Cowboys?
He's done just as much as Joel Embiid has done for the city of Philadelphia.
My point. You.
I had to look
shit
it up, and
his
I'm
ass
like,
off.
bro, you shouldn't be making those comments. You haven't done a thing. You haven't even made a fucking conference final.
That is a
Because what's Dallas' record so far
quality
this year?
Comparison.
That is dead on, right? That is
a
dead on.
Quality comparison.
What's Dallas' record right now? 2-6.
No, they got 3 games.
No, so
It really hurts that
3
we
and 4,
lost to
3
them.
because they've had their bye, so I think they're 3-5.
Yeah, something like
So it's like their season's basically a wash at this point.
that. It's
hard to
just
come
because
back.
the NFC's got a lot
Oh,
of
the
really
NFC's
good
tight.
teams,
Yeah.
and they still got to play 2 really good teams in their division a
Yeah.
couple extra times. So
Yeah, and the NFC is looking better than the AFC this year, and it's like the first time in a while that that's been the case. Like there's a lot of quality teams in the NFC.
You had to build them somehow.
I
mean-
mean, Washington, Detroit, Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Anyone else am I missing?
Green Bay doesn't look bad when they're healthy. This last game was they played
They're
Detroit,
3rd in their division.
but that whole division's pretty good.
Yeah,
Chicago's got a solid defense. If they can get the offense figured out.
but I'm saying that they have the ability to just run over through any team in the AFC. I don't think Green Bay has that ability. Atlanta doesn't. Arizona doesn't.
Old
San
croaky
Francisco, maybe if McCaffrey gets back, but I'm still on the fence. We got to see how they play.
You gotta have their whole team.
Yeah, you gotta have their whole team
Yeah.
healthy.
They just
So I'm saying 3 teams that have a really good shot, and then now revert it to the teams that you believe in there. You know, it's Baltimore, it's Buffalo. I will throw Kansas City in there because they know how to win it. It's ugly,
It's hard to bet
but
against
they know how to win it. They do know how to win it, and you want to say the Texans, but unfortunately they're now out just because of that. Still don't really believe it. So it's like that big three versus that big 3. I would still say edge slightly to AFC. Detroit is definitely number 1 out of all 6 teams.
I wouldn't even give the AFC the edge
Minnesota.
because Kansas City's had ugly wins that they should have blown teams out.
They still know how.
Baltimore's
to win.
had some ugly losses to teams that they should have beat. And then who was the other team you said?
Well, the first 2 was in the beginning of the year when everyone was trashy.
Well, no, they just lost last week.
They
What,
lost
one
to
and-
Cleveland. They shouldn't have lost to Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Jameis Winston.
But
Came alive.
and then-
And who was the other team you said?
Buffalo.
Died. And then died.
And then Buffalo, it's Buffalo. They lose games that they shouldn't lose, and then they win games that surprise you.
Yeah, but I mean, so does Minnesota and so does Washington. I mean, they're all. I would just say Detroit is definitely ahead above every team that I mentioned.
But Washington's one of their losses came in the game that Daniels got hurt, right? They lost that game, didn't they?
No. They won because they were versing Carolina. They were like, you just sit down.
You don't have to.
Because I was versing.
No, I
Casey.
thought he got hurt the week before,
I
and
was
they
versing-
tried to play him.
I was versing Casey in fantasy that week, and so they sat him. He came back the next week. Yeah, it was versing Carolina, and they were already up like 17.
Who were their
nothing.
losses to? Because they lost, what, 2 games, right? They're 7-2.
They're 7-2. Yeah.
Who were their
They-
2 losses to? Because I do remember Marcus Mariota having a game against
That's what the internet's
whoever it
for. It
was.
was against the Panthers.
Yeah.
They lost to the Bucks and the Ravens.
Okay, so 2 solid teams. And when Tampa Bay has their
That's when
offensive
Tampa Bay
weapons.
was
a full
hot.
That was
Yeah,
a stacked
so-
Tampa Bay team.
So that's two
'Cause Tampa
good.
Bay's
That's
another-
two good teams at the time that they lost to. The teams that they've beaten: Giants twice, the Browns, Panthers, barely beat the Bears, Bengals, but that's when the Bengals were not.
They were shit.
They were shit. And the Cardinals, and Cardinals were still trying to figure out because that was like week 4, and they
Cardinals are
beat
good.
them.
They're like a wild card team.
Yeah, so out of the 7 that you've won, 1.5,
And they haven't played.
you maybe had a test.
And they haven't played the good teams in there, did it? Because they haven't played the Eagles.
So they have us this week. They're only giving them 3 points. We'll see. It's all about the defense.
That'd be a good test for both
Then
teams.
they got the Eagles. I think that's gonna be a really good test.
Yeah.
Then you get the gimme of Dallas. Then you get the gimme of the Titans. You get the gimme of the Saints. Which they're just pretty much saying like, hey, do you guys just want the division now? We'll gift wrap it to you. Then they get the Eagles again. Then you get the Falcons. We'll see where they're at because I'm still not fully sold on
Kirky
Falcons.
2 Chainz.
Yeah.
And then you get the Cowboys at the end of the year. So out of the remaining games,
They can win all but 2 and still be fine.
you have 1, 2,
I say,
3 that are a true test.
yeah.
With Atlanta maybe being a 3.5 out of the rest of the games. Like they should win at least 1, 2, 3, 4 more games out the gate.
And it really depends on which
And have
Philly shows
11
up too,
wins.
because Philly's had some games where they didn't look great.
But Philly has ever since the bye
Philly's
week,
like Kansas City; they find ways to win games.
Well, the thing is, Philly has finally decided. Oh, hey, we win when Saquon gets the ball 20 times and rushes for over 100+ yards. Like, and if Jalen throws a pass or 2 for a touchdown, that's great. But we don't need it to run through him.
Well, it's because they're used to the last 3 or 4 seasons. The running backs have needed Philly. Now Philly needs their running back.
Yeah, but that's
They finally got a running back who didn't need them.
But
They're
they
like,
realized
I
that.
don't-
But
I
it's
don't
all
need you,
but it's
you
all
need
about the
me.
game plan. And once they went through the bye week, they were like, oh, if we give him the ball and just let him do his thing, then we got a better shot at winning than trying to do some other stupid shit.
I feel like
Other
Baltimore's
teams should try to figure that out. Like the Colts. Like Jonathan Taylor is the you
Yeah,
pay
but the
him.
issue is with the Colts. They try to run everything through Anthony Richardson because they're like, he's our quarterback. Let's run through him. And I'm like, no, he's terrible. Like, there's a reason why all the time he has the worst completion percentage.
Yeah.
And not, like, by a short stint. No, like, ever. He has the worst.
It is bad.
And it's like you have Joe Flacco back there who proved your offense can produce big numbers with a quarterback who knows what they're doing. Because Anthony Richardson's not that good. But they knew what they were drafting. He's a big body athletic quarterback. That's
They
it.
knew they were drafting a project. You just
Yeah, and then you're upset that the project's like
Well, they're
not
short-
done itself up.
their short stint of that project, they were like, "Oh, he's much farther than we thought he was. So let's give him the keys." And then they realized, like, "Oh yeah, he was a project. So let's pump the brakes a little bit."
But yeah, so I think it's a good time to take a break. We're going to get back to the rest of the NFL fantasy. We got some Madden stuff we're going to be doing, some Madden teams.
Yeah, we'll do a snake draft and do a Madden team and see who.
And
we
run
gotta do
the
something where the
results.
loser does something.
I'm a snack.
Do whoever's team finishes the worst has to do something.
Sounds good to me. And
Yeah.
we'll be back after this.
After these few messages from our sponsors.
I just have to shit.